Well, here we are. I've got my country hat on. It's solid, the background. Sick of all that water, and the wind's under control. There's only one problem. I'm a little bit of a loss of what to talk about, because I'm COVID-19 out, like everybody else. You know, everybody else has had enough COVID-19. So, look, I could talk about the economic consequences, and it's not very good, but I may leave that for a week or two. I could talk about the reaction. I could talk about the noise in the background, but we're not going to do that. I'm thinking of talking about belief systems, because I'm interested in the concept of belief systems, because I like to think I'm a rational human being, or maybe I'm not. And obviously there's people like Mr. Trump and Mr. Pompeo who are out liars, who will say anything they can to protect their personal fortunes or will promote their political future. That's not a belief system. I mean, they're just basically crooks. I'm more interested in people who actually do extraordinary things because of a belief system. And we've seen a number of things happen over the past a few years which I would never have expected to see in the 21st century. With the rise of Islamic State, or Daesh, was quite fascinating, because here is a group of people who based their actions on their literal interpretation of what they believed was in the Quran, and then they tried to implement that society. Then a few days ago, what got me thinking about belief systems was when the Deputy Medical Officer here in Victoria sent out a private tweet, that she was making comparisons between the COVID-19 crisis and what actually happened to the First Nations people, Indigenous Australians, when they first came across, when they were first colonised. And you just got to look at the original statistics and original writings about that period, about that bodies were piled up all over the place because people had no immunity. So they were victims of a pandemic. And when you look at the historical record, you look at what Hume Hovell wrote as they meandered across Victoria looking for wonderful pastures for the sheep that were to come. They made a lot of observations about campsites or villages that had been abandoned, and the fact that the Aboriginals they came across had smallpox scars on them. And let's not forget that in 1803 was the first settlement in Victoria. So pandemics have always been with us, and we've seen pandemics. But again, getting back to the belief system, this woman did this tweet, she's a government employee, she did this tweet, and I couldn't believe the hue and cry from the Liberal Party here in Victoria under Mr. O'Brien. It was just extraordinary. And then I thought, well, maybe their reaction is because their philosophy is based on the belief system that there was actually nothing happened during the colonisation process, that Indigenous Australians weren't violently dispossessed of their lands and culture and their lives, that it was just, it was all nice. So again, this thing, having a belief that you can actually try to make sense of the world. For example, we've got Holocaust deniers in the world, people who think the Holocaust never occurred. Then we've got people who are flat earthers, who think that the earth is flat despite all the evidence. People who think the moon landing never occurred. People who think that the COVID-19 crisis is a planned demic, that these little people in big hats somewhere have planned it all. So it's quite extraordinary. And then I was thinking, we've always had belief systems, and human cultures and human beings and human civilizations have always been based on certain belief systems. And if we look at all the religious groups that have come and gone in the history of the world, it's obvious that most of them were based on belief systems which had nothing to do with reality or facts. And we can actually extend that to today's current major religions and minor religions. They're all based on a belief system which is not rooted in any fact or rationality. And what's extraordinary is, although we're in the 21st century and we think we are a a civilised society which is based on rational principles, that whenever some type of crisis occurs, that you've got all these people who are using intuition and belief, which is based on their prejudices and which is based on their cultural upbringing, bringing these ideas to the fore. For example, the white race is the superior race. It just goes on and on. These extraordinary beliefs. Now, what I've noticed is a change in belief systems in the last decade, and which is related to the growth of the World Wide Web and the virtual world. Now, in the past, it used to be people in authority, religious authorities, state leaders, corporations, which determined what our belief systems were to a significant degree. But what the internet has done something really interesting. It's actually democratised the concept of belief system, and now having 3 to 4 billion people at your behest when you're surfing the net, it's quite easy to find somebody else who's got the same prejudices or the same cultural issues, and people are coming together in extraordinary numbers, not based on facts or rationality, but based on belief. So why am I concerned about the growth of belief systems? And obviously IS was the more prominent example in the last few years. What concerns me about people basing their life on certain beliefs that have no basis in reality, have no factual basis, have no rational basis, is that what we are creating is the very type of society which we had in the Middle Ages, and which we've had right up to the French Revolution, where minorities were basically eliminated in various ways because various societies had various beliefs about people, like left-handed people, sinistra, which means left hand, which also means sinister. I mean, left-handed people were considered to be the work of the devil, although 10% of the population is normally left-handed. Then we had the witch trials, the Inquisition. Then we had the belief in Aztec Empire that you needed a continuous human sacrifices in order for the sun to rise. So what are we doing? Here we are in the most scientific-based period in human history, where we know the extent of the universe. We have theories about the origins of the universe. We have microscopes which can show us the viruses, where we can find the DNA of a virus or a bacteria or any other living organism in this planet. We can actually work out its genome, and I assume we could do the same thing if somebody came down from Mars. So what are we doing with ourselves? The fact is we are reverting back to a much more primitive background. Now, if a yoga teacher on the internet can have 7 million followers and a blue healer in the background, why can't I have a blue healer barking in this presentation? And I think it's worried about the basketball players around the corner, but that's a different matter. Now, getting back to the topic. So, is belief anti-human? Is basing your life on a belief system anti-human, a belief system that is not based on reality or facts? Is it the beginning of a reversion back to the Dark Ages, where people went with their instincts and their cultural upbringing, not actually looked at things rigorously and actually made decisions? And when you look at what's happening in the world today, where people are promoting this cure and that cure for COVID-19 with no rational basis, when you've got people saying some type of planned epidemic to wipe out the human race, when you've got people around the world thinking that it's some type of Chinese conspiracy, when you've got the President of the United States of America carrying on about the Chinese in order to divert attention from his woeful handling of the coronavirus epidemic in the United States of America, you begin to wonder. Because to me, to base your life on some type of belief system which has no grounding in fact is ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. Whether it's a mainstream religion, whether it's some esoteric little group that thinks the earth is still flat, whether it's you know, a coalition of 4 people who think that the earth is run by a green-eyed cat. The fact that it's based on belief, we can actually create any belief system we like. And the dilemma is that when you create a belief system and that belief system becomes part of entrenched authority, then you can actually use all the elements of the state to impose that belief on other human beings, and you can actually change the lives of millions, if not billions of people in a negative way. Now, around the world, we are seeing the rise of governments which are based on belief systems, whether it's some type of, you know, pseudo political rationalisation, whether it's based on the belief that God, you know, you're the chosen people, or God is looking after your particular mob and nobody else, or whether you think you need to catalogue every human being on the planet because sooner or later 6,000 of you are going to turn up in heaven. The fact is that basing any part of our lives and society on a particular belief system is fraught with dangers, because what do you get with belief systems? You get leaders, you get rulers, you get people who then manipulate those ideas in order to promote their own personal agendas. What do you get? You get the ostracisation of minorities. Yes, and yes, you get the ostracisation of minorities. Look, so what have you based your life on? Have you based your life on reality? The things around you that are happening to you? Have you based your life on some type of belief system you cobbled together off the World Wide Web, you and a few friends of yourselves who think you're the ants' pants? Are you attached to some, you know, ancient religious belief system? Because the dilemma is, when you start talking to people with a rigid belief system, any impression, any conversation turns out to be very difficult, because they think you are attacking them personally. Now, when I talk about belief systems, I don't care what your belief system is. But if that belief system leads to the ostracisation and marginalisation of people, if it excludes people, if it makes you some type of chosen human being, if it blinds your eyes to the pain and suffering and the reality around you, well, then I'm happy to confront you on that basis. Because to me, any political movement or social movement or cultural movement which is based on a belief system is inherently evil. It's inherently evil because it's about them and us. You and me, them and us. Those who believe and those who don't. And those who don't are the enemy. And if you look at the historical examples over the centuries, over thousands of years, you will see when people in authority with a particular belief system are able to exercise absolute power, the carnage which occurs as a result of them trying to implement that belief system on the general population can be catastrophic. So what are you? Are your actions determined by a specific set of beliefs? Are your actions determined by your interaction with the world and the people around you? Think about it. As I said before, if you want to join a political and social organisation that is based on reality and facts, then I encourage you to download the Pipsy application form and join us. Pipsy, pibci.net. If you want to join some obtuse belief group and think that you've got all the solutions to the world problems, good luck. Because in the end, it's rational human beings who are concerned about the people around them, who are concerned about themselves, who want to create a society where power and wealth is shared, who are the ones who will make a difference. Because we don't exclude people because of their religious beliefs, because of their race, because of their colour, because of their sexual orientation, because of their gender. We welcome everyone who wishes to create a world based on the devolution of powers, the sharing of power, and the holding of wealth in common, so we can actually be in a position to deal with the crises that human beings now face and will continue to face till the end of time.